The morning felt different the moment Kamal stepped into the restaurant. Normally, the place was alive with noise. Pans clattering, cooks laughing, the warm smell of spices filling the air. But today, it felt like the whole building was holding its breath. The workers who always greeted him with smiles suddenly looked down at their feet. Some slipped past him quickly, pretending to be busy. Others froze for a moment, then turned away like they couldn't bear to meet his eyes. Kamal tried to shake off the strange feeling. Maybe everyone was stressed. Maybe there was a rush coming. But deep down, a small heaviness settled in his chest, telling him something wasn't right. He walked toward the kitchen, expecting to see his father checking the morning prep like he always did. But Babam Tekwi stood at the far end, arms crossed, staring hard at a pot as if it had offended him. When Kamal said softly, "Morning, Baba," the older man didn't even turn. He just tightened his jaw and stared straight ahead, as if Kamal wasn't even there. That hurt more than any shout. Kamal stood there for a moment, confused, trying to understand what he had done wrong. The air around him felt heavy, almost cold, even with the heat of the kitchen. He caught the eyes of one of the waiters, a boy he had trained himself, but the boy quickly looked away, guilt flashing across his face. It was in that moment that Kamal's heart sank. Everyone knew something. Everyone, except him. The morning smelled of spices and warm bread. But beneath it, Kamal felt another scent, betrayal, sharp and bitter, crawling into his chest before he even understood what had happened. Kamal stepped out of the kitchen, trying to breathe away the strange tension. Maybe he was imagining things. Maybe it was just a bad morning. But as he walked toward the small office at the back of the restaurant, he heard low voices. The door wasn't fully closed, and two accountants were inside, whispering urgently. He paused, not meaning to eavesdrop, but the words hit him like a slap. "Does Kamal know?" one asked quietly. No. Babam Tekwi said not to tell him yet. "The papers are already signed. It belongs to Lutfi now." Kamal felt the ground tilt under his feet. Lutfi, his younger brother. The boy who barely knew how to handle a kitchen knife. The one who spent every morning sleeping while Kamal came before sunrise. He leaned closer without realizing it. The other accountant sighed and said, "This is going to break him. He built this place with his own hands." A heavy silence followed, the kind that hides truth too painful to say aloud. Kamal slowly stepped back, heart thundering in his chest. His palms felt cold. For a moment he couldn't move. It felt like someone had reached inside him and pulled something out, something he didn't know how to get back. He forced his legs to walk into the office once the accountants left. His thoughts were spinning, but his hands, almost on their own, opened the drawer where he kept the daily reports. Only today the folder on top wasn't familiar. It was thicker, sealed, with his father's handwriting on the corner. Confused, he opened it. And there it was. The official transfer papers. The ownership documents. The restaurant registration. All stamped, all signed, all transferred to Lutfi. Kamal stared at the name again and again, hoping he was reading wrong. But the letters didn't change. His father's signature, big and bold, sat at the bottom. And right next to it, in the place where his name should have been, was only a blank line. They didn't even bother pretending he was part of the decision. He felt his throat tighten as the truth settled in. They took everything he built, everything he sacrificed, everything he dreamed of, just handed it over. Secretly, coldly, behind his back. He remembered the long nights he spent perfecting recipes, the days he worked without breaks, the festivals he skipped, the friends he lost touch with, all because he wanted this restaurant to rise. He wanted his family to be proud. He wanted to make something that carried their name with honor. And this was his reward. Kamal sat down slowly, the papers shaking in his hands. He wasn't angry yet. The pain was too fresh, too sharp, too deep. His chest felt tight, like the room had become smaller, trapping him inside a truth he never asked for. In that silent little office, surrounded by the documents of his own betrayal, Kamal felt something inside him fracture. A crack so loud he could almost hear it. They didn't just take the restaurant. They took the trust he had spent his whole life building. Kamal walked out of the office with the papers still trembling in his hand. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself toward the kitchen where his father stood, giving orders like nothing was wrong. The room buzzed with activity, but for Kamal, everything sounded muted, distant, like he was underwater. "Baba, we need to talk," Kamal said quietly. His father didn't look at him at first. He kept stirring a pot, giving instructions, acting as if Kamal wasn't standing right there with his whole world falling apart. Finally he turned, his face hard, unreadable. "I saw the papers," Kamal said, voice shaking. "You transferred the restaurant to Lutfi?" For a moment the kitchen froze. Everyone pretended to keep working, but their ears were open, waiting. Babam Tekwi wiped his hands on a towel, sighed deeply, then looked at his son with cold finality. "Yes, I did." Kamal blinked, trying to understand. "But why? I've been here every day. I helped build this place." His father cut him off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Kamal, listen. You cook well. Very well. But running a business, that requires strength, leadership, decisions. You are not leadership material." The words stabbed deeper than any knife in the kitchen. Kamal felt his breath catch. "Not leadership material. After everything I've done for this place." His father shrugged, as if it wasn't personal. "You're soft. You care too much about people's feelings. A business needs someone stronger. Lutfi may not know much now, but he has the confidence. He can learn. He can lead." Kamal felt something inside him collapse. Like a pillar he'd built his whole life suddenly crumbled in a second. He had spent years thinking his father was proud of him, that his hard work meant something, that every sacrifice, every early morning, every burned finger and missed holiday mattered. "So that's it," Kamal whispered. "You just gave him everything." Babam Tekwi didn't hesitate. "Yes, it's my decision. And it's final. You should accept it and step aside." Step aside. Like he was some stranger. Like he was replaceable. Like he hadn't built the entire foundation they were standing on. Kamal felt the heat rise behind his eyes, but he refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of his father. Not in front of people who already knew what he had just discovered. He looked at his father one last time, searching for even a small sign of warmth, regret, or guilt. But Babam Tekwi's face stayed stiff, emotionless, as if he had done nothing wrong. That was the moment Kamal felt the deepest pain, not from losing the restaurant, but from realizing he had already lost his father long before this day. The kitchen noise slowly returned, but for Kamal, everything inside him had gone quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that comes after a heart has been cracked open. Kamal was still standing there, trying to breathe through the pain of his father's words, when he heard footsteps behind him. Slow, confident, almost theatrical. He didn't need to turn to know who it was. Lufi. His younger brother walked into the kitchen like he already owned every wall, every spoon, every stove. He wasn't even dressed for work, just wearing a clean shirt, flashy watch, and that smile, that arrogant, mocking smile that Kamal had seen too many times growing up. "Oh," Lutfi said loudly, his voice dripping with fake surprise. "So you finally found out." Kamal didn't respond. He didn't trust his voice. Lutfi chuckled and looked around the kitchen like an emperor greeting his servants. "Well, big brother, it's all official now. Baba says I've got the natural gift to lead. And you." He paused dramatically, then reached for something on the counter. Kamal's apron. Lutfi balled it up casually and tossed it at Kamal's chest. The fabric hit him harder than anything else had that day, not because of the weight, but because of the disrespect behind it. The workers around them froze. A knife stopped mid-chop. A spoon clattered on a table. Even the sizzling pans seemed to quiet down. "There," Lutfi said, brushing imaginary dust from his hands. "You won't need this anymore." Kamal swallowed, feeling the sting deep in his chest. "Lutfi, why are you doing this?" he asked softly. Lutfi rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on. Don't play the victim now. You're the one who always acted like you were the future of this place." He stepped closer, lowering his voice but making sure everyone still heard him. "But the truth is, you're not built for big things. You're small." Kamal's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. Lutfi smirked, raising his voice again. If you really want to keep cooking, maybe you can start a tiny food stall somewhere. That's your level, brother. Street food, plastic plates, pocket change, that sort of thing. A wave of shock moved through the kitchen. The staff looked from one brother to the other, but no one dared to speak. Some looked heartbroken, some looked angry, some looked scared, but no one stepped in. Kamal felt their eyes on him, the people he had trained, supported, encouraged, defended, the people who had seen him bleed for this place. And now they were watching him get pushed out like trash. But what hurt most wasn't their silence. It was Lutfi's eyes. Those eyes that held no love, no respect, no guilt, only pride. Pride in breaking him. Pride in taking what wasn't earned. Kamal slowly bent down, picked up the crumpled apron, and held it in his hands. Not as a symbol of defeat, but as a reminder of everything he had built with honesty and hard work. Lutfi laughed lightly. "Don't worry, brother. I'll take good care of my restaurant." Kamal didn't answer, because in that moment, he realized something powerful. He wasn't staying where he was not respected. He wasn't begging for a place that was stolen from him. And he wasn't giving Lutfi the satisfaction of seeing him break. The kitchen stayed silent as Kamal turned and walked away, carrying nothing but the pieces of his heart, and the spark of a new beginning he didn't yet know was coming. Kamal stood there for a long moment, holding the apron in his hands, feeling the last piece of the life he knew slipping away. His father's cold voice, Lutfi's mocking smile, the staff's silent heartbreak, it all blended into one heavy knot sitting in his chest. But he didn't shout. He didn't break anything. He didn't beg. Something deeper than anger was guiding him now. Something quiet, steady, and painfully clear. He folded the apron, placed it gently on the counter, and without looking back at anyone, he walked toward the exit. Each step felt heavier, but also strangely lighter, like he was shedding the weight of years he spent trying to earn love that was never given. No one stopped him. No one called his name. No one said goodbye. The door closed softly behind him, and the sound echoed through him like a final goodbye he never got to speak. Outside, Lukaya town looked the same. Busy market stalls, children running, the smell of roasted plantains from the corner stand. But Kamal felt different, like he no longer belonged to any part of this place. The sun was setting slowly, painting the sky orange, and he realized he had no plan, no destination, nowhere to go. But he also knew staying would only kill pieces of him he still wanted to protect. That night he went home, packed a small backpack with a few clothes, some savings, and the one thing he refused to leave behind, his mother's old recipe book. The pages were worn, edges torn, stained with oil and love. She had taught him to cook using those recipes, telling him that food was more than flavor. It was heart. It was identity. It was a story. He sat on his bed for a long moment, staring at the walls of the room he'd grown up in. The room where he had dreamed of expanding the restaurant, opening new branches, making his father proud. Those dreams no longer lived here. They had been taken, pushed out, replaced by betrayal. He zipped the backpack, took one last look around and stepped outside. The night air was cool and quiet. Street lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, laughter echoed from a neighbor's house. But Kamal felt alone, painfully, beautifully alone. The kind of alone that can break a person or push them to rise. He didn't leave a note. He didn't knock on any doors. He didn't look back at the restaurant or the home that had rejected him. He walked toward the bus station with steady steps, carrying nothing but his hurt, his mother's recipes, and a silent promise inside him. If they couldn't see his worth here, he would build a life somewhere else where no one could ignore it. That night, without a word, without a farewell, Kamal disappeared from Lukaya, leaving behind his past, his pain, and the people who never believed in him. And unknowingly, he was walking straight into the life he was meant to create. Kamal stepped off the old bus in Kasongo Heights with nothing but his backpack, tired eyes, and a heart that still hurt every time he breathed. The city felt bigger, louder, and faster than Lukaya. Cars honked, people rushed past him, and tall buildings rose into the sky like giants. He had no friends here, no family, no plan. Just the hope that this place would give him a chance his own home never did. He found a cheap room in a run-down hostel and spent the next morning walking door to door looking for work. Most places didn't even let him finish speaking before shaking their heads. But at last, a noisy local restaurant took him in, not as a chef, not even as an assistant, but as a dishwasher. It wasn't glamorous. His hands were always wet and wrinkled, his back ached every night, and sometimes he washed plates until midnight. But he didn't complain. He needed the job. He needed the stability. And he knew one thing for sure: pain doesn't kill a dream unless you let it. Every evening after the restaurant closed, Kamal stayed behind for a few minutes, watching the chefs cook, watching how they mixed spices, how they plated dishes, how they talked to customers. He wasn't jealous, he was learning, quietly, patiently, like fire that starts as a spark. A few weeks later, with a little money he had saved, Kamal bought basic ingredients: flour, spices, vegetables, chicken, a small pan, and a portable stove. He found a small spot outside the busy Kasongo market, right beside a wall painted with peeling blue paint. It wasn't much, but it was his. The first day, he made a simple dish from his mother's recipe book: spicy coconut chicken with soft fried chapatis. People walked past him without stopping. Some looked suspicious. Some didn't look at all. But then, an older woman tasted his food. Her eyes widened. What is this?" she asked, almost emotional. Kamal smiled softly. "Just something my mother taught me." Within minutes, her excitement spread. More people came. Then even more. His little corner stall turned noisy, crowded, alive. The smell of his food drifted through the market like a warm invitation. One afternoon, a young vlogger stopped by, drawn by the crowd. She recorded Kamal cooking, his fast hands, his calm focus, the steam rising beautifully from his pan. She posted the video online. By the next morning, it had thousands of views. By the next week, millions. People searched for him, traveled across the city to taste his food. Some even filmed themselves eating his meals, praising him like he was a hidden gem. Every smile, every compliment, every "this is incredible," healed a small piece of the wound he carried from Lukaya. Slowly, the small cooking corner became more than a stall. It became his fire, the place where he started rising again. Kasongo Heights didn't just give him a new life. It gave him back the confidence his family tried to destroy. Kamal's small corner outside the Kasongo market had turned into a daily festival. Every morning, people lined up before he even arrived. Some brought their friends. Some brought cameras. Some just stood there watching him cook like it was art. And honestly, it was the way he moved the pan, the way he stirred the sauces, the way he smiled quietly each time someone took their first bite and their face lit up. But everything changed the day the vlogger returned. Her first video had already gone viral, but she wanted to film a longer one, a full story about him. She recorded him cooking, laughing with customers, cleaning his tiny stall, talking about his mother's recipes. She posted it online with the title, "Meet the Man Cooking Magic on the Streets of Kasongo." Within hours, it spread like wildfire. People shared it everywhere. Comments poured in from different countries. Some said they wanted to fly just to taste his food. Others wrote that Kamal reminded them of home, of love, of someone who never gave up. The next morning, something unexpected happened. While Kamal was preparing his ingredients, two well-dressed men approached him. Not customers, not vloggers. They looked like people who usually ate at fancy hotels, not street stalls. Kamal felt nervous for a second, wiping his hands on his apron. "Are you Kamal?" one of them asked with a warm smile. "Yes," he nodded carefully. The taller man extended his hand. "We're from Selma Hospitality Group. We've been following your videos online." Kamal's heart skipped. Selma was one of the biggest food groups in the region. The second man looked around at the crowd waiting for Kamal's food. "Your stall is small," he said softly, "but your talent is huge." Kamal didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to him like that, not even in his own home. "We want to invest in you," the first man continued. "Not in your father's restaurant. Not in your old life. Your flavors. Your story. Your brand." Kamal blinked, stunned. "Invest. In me." They nodded. "We want to help you build your own place. A modern Afrofusion restaurant. Something fresh. Something bold. something that carries your signature. For a moment, Kamal couldn't breathe. A restaurant. His own. After everything he had lost, after all the humiliations, after walking away with just a backpack and a recipe book, now this? The crowd around him had gone quiet, watching, sensing something big was happening. The man smiled again. You've already won the hearts of the people. Let us help you build a home for your talent. Kamal felt his eyes sting. The world around him blurred. He thought of his father saying he wasn't leadership material. He thought of Lutfi throwing his apron at him. He thought of the night he left Lukaya with nothing. And he realized, maybe the betrayal didn't break him. Maybe it pushed him to the place where he was finally meant to shine. He took a slow breath, nodded, and shook their hands. The investors grinned. Welcome to your future, Kamal. For the first time in a long time, Kamal felt something powerful rising inside him. Hope. A new fire that no one could ever take away again. Kamal could hardly believe how quickly his life changed. One moment he was cooking on a small stove outside a noisy market, and the next he was standing inside a brand new restaurant with his name on the sign. The investors helped him find the perfect spot, a bright corner building with tall windows and room for a big open kitchen. Kamal chose the name Firepot because he wanted every dish to feel alive, warm, and full of soul, just like the meals his mother used to make. The first night they opened, Kamal expected maybe 20 or 30 people. Instead, a huge line wrapped around the building. People clapped when he stepped into the kitchen. Some even shouted his name. He felt his chest tighten, not with fear but with gratitude. After everything he went through, this moment felt unreal. Inside, Firepot didn't look like a regular restaurant. It was full of color. Orange lights, wooden tables, African-patterned walls, plants hanging from the ceiling, and the smell of spices floating everywhere. People could watch Kamal cook through a big glass window. He moved like he was born in that kitchen, flipping pans, tasting sauces, plating dishes with quiet confidence. Every plate that left the kitchen carried a story. Coconut stews, roasted pepper chicken, plantain bowls, spicy soups, sweet mango sauces. People didn't just eat, they reacted. Some closed their eyes. Some took pictures. Some ate in silence like they were experiencing something emotional. Soon the news spread beyond Kasongo Heights. Food bloggers came. Journalists came. Even a few local celebrities walked in with security, asking shyly if they could take a picture with Kamal. He laughed every time. He still wasn't used to being treated like a star. One magazine called him Kasongo's Rising Flame. Another wrote, the young chef turning street recipes into gold. Every achievement felt like a soft victory against the voices that once tried to break him. One night, as he stepped outside after closing, he saw a long line still waiting, people who didn't even get a seat but refused to leave until they tried his food. A group of tourists waved at him excitedly, shouting, "We came from another country just to eat here." Kamal smiled, his heart full. He remembered the boy who left Lukaya with a backpack and a recipe book. That same boy was now the owner of a restaurant people couldn't stop talking about. Firepot became the hottest place in the city, not because of money or fancy decorations, but because people felt something when they tasted his food. They felt warmth, they felt home, they felt love. And Kamal, he had become everything his father said he wasn't. Leader. Success. A man people believed in. He didn't need revenge. His success spoke louder than any words he could ever say. Back in Lukaya, the restaurant that Kamal had built with sweat and love began to crumble almost immediately under Lutfi's hands. He had no idea how to run a kitchen or manage a team, but he strutted around like a king, barking orders and acting as if confidence alone could replace skill. The staff, who had once respected Kamal and worked tirelessly, started quitting one by one. Some left quietly, others stormed out in frustration, shaking their heads at Lutfi's careless mistakes and constant yelling. Customers noticed too. Orders were wrong, dishes were cold, and the welcoming warmth the restaurant used to have was gone. Word spread quickly. People stopped coming. The lively tables and the buzz of satisfied chatter turned into empty chairs and silent corners. The smells of burnt food and neglected kitchens replaced the inviting aroma of spices and fresh ingredients. Bills began piling up. Lutfi ignored suppliers, delayed payments, and argued with anyone who tried to advise him. The electricity was cut off once, and the water supply was inconsistent. The restaurant that had been Lukaya's pride was now a shadow of itself, crumbling under neglect and arrogance. Babam Tekwi, for the first time, realized that giving everything to Lutfi had been a terrible mistake. He tried calling Kamal multiple times, leaving messages, begging him to come back and help save the place. But Kamal didn't answer. He was busy building his own life, his own restaurant, and he had no interest in stepping back into the nightmare he had left behind. Lutfi's pride blinded him. He refused advice, ignored complaints, and treated every small problem like an insult to his authority. The longer he stayed in charge, the worse the restaurant became. Regulars who had once loved the flavors and warmth now avoided it entirely, and even new customers hesitated to enter. It wasn't just the food or the management that failed. It was the spirit of the place. The laughter, the care, the love that Kamal had poured into every corner had vanished. In its place was chaos, mistakes, and Lutfi's arrogant belief that he could succeed without learning, without effort. And as the restaurant sank, Babam Tekwi realized a painful truth. He had given the heart of his family's legacy to someone who didn't deserve it. Meanwhile, Kamal's fire pot in Kasongo Heights continued to flourish. Every social media post, every article, every video that showed him cooking with passion was a quiet echo back to Lukaya. The message was clear: pride without skill, confidence without heart, cannot replace hard work and dedication. Lutfi's arrogance destroyed the restaurant that was once a symbol of family, love, and legacy. And Babam Tekwi, finally seeing the truth, was left to watch as the life they had built together slowly crumbled. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped behind the tall buildings of Kasongo Heights, Kamal was plating dishes in fire pot, the restaurant buzzing with laughter, sizzling pans, and the smell of spices. He barely noticed the door open until a familiar shadow appeared in the doorway. His heart skipped a beat. It was Babam Tekwi. Older now, slower, with lines on his face that hadn't been there before. But he didn't walk in with demands or anger. He didn't carry pride or excuses. He walked in quietly, almost humbly, looking around at the busy restaurant, the life Kamal had built without him. "Kamal," his father said softly. His voice wasn't loud, just gentle. Kamal turned, wiping his hands on his apron, and looked at him. There was no anger in his eyes. No shouting. No tears. Only calm. I wanted to say I'm sorry," Babam Tekwi continued. "I gave your restaurant to Lutfi. I thought he could handle it. I was wrong. I see that now. And I see what I took from you. I'm sorry." Kamal listened, the words sinking in. It wasn't easy to forgive, but he didn't need to. He had already moved past the pain. He had already built something bigger, better, and completely his own. He looked at his father and smiled faintly. "You gave my dream away," he said quietly. "But losing it gave me a better one." Babam Tekwi opened his mouth, but Kamal didn't wait for a response. He turned back to the kitchen, to the flames, the pots, the laughter, the customers who loved his food. Every dish he served now carried not just flavor, but freedom, pride, and the proof that he had risen on his own. His father stood there for a moment, watching, realizing that his son no longer needed his approval or his guidance. Fire Pot was alive, thriving, and glowing with Kamal's passion, a life he had built from nothing but courage, skill, and heart. Kamal took a deep breath, feeling the weight of betrayal lift completely from his chest. He was free, truly free. And for the first time in a long time he smiled, not for anyone else, not for fame, not for revenge, but for himself. The kitchen buzzed around him, alive and warm, as Kamal moved through it with steady hands and a quiet joy. Babam Tekwi quietly turned and left, leaving his son to the life he had earned, the dream he had rebuilt, and the freedom he had fought so hard to find.